One of the challenges when you step into leadership is that it may be the first time that you've had to lead people who know an awful lot more about their subject than you do. Often you'll have worked as an expert in your area, and then you're suddenly expected to be leading people who are experts in other areas. This can be really challenging, but it doesn't need to be. And in this video, I'll talk through some tips and tricks for how you can start to learn to lead experts. Hi, I'm Catherine at Life in the Third Lane, the channel for charity and non-profit leaders. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. That way you won't miss out on any future content. So let's start. Think back over your career. Chances are you started in a role without really knowing anything about it. You had to learn how to do everything, and you got better and better at it through practice, because practice makes perfect and all that. As you learned more and more about that subject and that area of work, you became a specialist. Your first leadership role might have also been in this area, leading other people who were earlier in their career. So you were the specialist and you were teaching other people and supporting other people as they developed within this existing area of specialism. But there will come a point where you have to start leading people who are doing things that you've never done before. So you couldn't step in and do that job having done it in the past. If you're the CEO of your organisation, you're likely to be leading people who are experts in finance, marketing, fundraising, HR, operations, or any other area that your organisation has. This needs a different kind of leadership, and you may need to have a rethink about how you look at yourself. There's a diagram that I find really useful for thinking about this. At the start of your career, you're a complete generalist because you don't have any specialist skills in any area. As you progress, you become more and more of a specialist, kind of focusing in on that specialist area. As soon as you start leading people, then you start to become more generalist because you need to have not only those specialist skills, but also those generalist and leadership and management skills. And then gradually over time, you'll find that you need less and less of the specialist skills and you become a generalist again. And in big organisations, there might be several steps through that, and you might be finding that you've got time to adjust. Whereas in small organisations, you can often find yourself going from generalist to specialist, back to generalist in 3 steps, and finding that a real challenge because you need to really change how you operate in each of those roles. It can also be really hard if you value yourself based on the skills that you developed and you know that you got the job because of your specialist skills, but then you're suddenly being asked not to use them. So it can be a real challenge because you may have built your self-worth around your skills and knowledge and experience, and then suddenly you're being asked to actually be a real generalist. So you could almost have this kind of hero to zero situation, and that can be really challenging to manage because you need to start thinking about yourself in a different way and in a different role. But in good news, there are ways that you can kind of deal with this transition relatively simply just by re-evaluating a few things. So I'd start by suggesting you evaluate your own skills, that you understand the skills of the people that you're now leading, and that you also kind of re-establish your knowledge about your own role. So the first place I'd start is looking at your own skills. So look across all the areas you're now responsible for and have a think about how comfortable you feel with your knowledge in that area. And remember, you don't need to be an expert, you just need to know the basics and to be able to understand what's being presented to you. You're likely to have one where you've been a specialist and you're really, really comfortable and really, that's your comfort zone. Then you're going to have other areas where maybe you've worked in a previous role and been working in that space. So you've got a good level of knowledge there. There are going to be others where you've maybe worked closely with people who've worked in that specialist area. So actually you've got a decent understanding there. But there might be others where you feel completely out of your depth and you feel like you don't really have much knowledge at all. So as I said, you don't need to be an expert in these things, but it does highlight areas where you might need to just upskill yourself a little bit so that you can make sure that you're speaking the same language as the people that you're talking to. But just remember, you'll always have someone there to help you. So the people who you're leading, well, they're the experts. So they should be helping to support you in terms of getting under the skin of what's going on in their area. The second place I'd suggest looking is trying to really understand your team's level of skill. So you might have someone who's been in role for a really long time, they're really expert in what they're doing and they absolutely know it and they kind of don't need much in terms of support, but they're very, very confident in what they're doing. You might have others who are relatively new to what they're doing. They may have just stepped up into a different role and they're going to need a lot more support. So you might need to have a bit more knowledge in that space. So you can map out both your own skill areas and the skill areas of your team on, say, a 2x2 grid. You might want to put your knowledge and skills and confidence on one axis and theirs on the other. And that might help you to focus on areas where actually both you're not so confident and the other person isn't so confident, because those are probably the areas that are going to need your focus first. Areas where you're not so confident but the other person is, then you can probably take a little more time to get up to speed there. Areas where you are super confident actually can be a bit of a challenge, because you need to really think about making sure that you're not stepping on toes. But we'll come back to that a bit in a minute. So the other thing is to really look at knowing your own role and what value you are now bringing in your new role. And it is different from the value you were bringing in a previous role. And if you've been promoted internally or taken this on within your organisation, it can be really difficult to throw off that hat and pick up another one and start to be seen in a different way. So it's really important to be clear on what your role is and what the role of the others that you're leading are. So your role is to provide guidance, direction, and have that overall visibility. So you are going to be the only person who has visibility over all of the areas that you're looking after. So you can make different decisions. So the leaders in each of those areas might make different decisions to you because they don't have that visibility across everything that's going on. So you need to take all of those inputs from your experts and then pull them all together and then make good decisions. So for example, you need to understand the finances, but you don't need to know every single transaction that's been through or how the system works. You just need to understand enough to be able to make good decisions and to be able to see that bigger picture. You'll soon start to develop your skills in being able to spot when things look maybe a bit iffy and you need to take a bit of a deeper dive. I alluded to this earlier, but interestingly, it's often easier to step into a leadership position in an area where you have less knowledge, because where you've been the specialist, it can be your comfort zone, it can feel good to be there, and you might get drawn into a lot more of the detail or actually doing some of the doing that you shouldn't really be doing because there's people there to do it. It can feel like a great place to focus, but actually you need to really think through why you would be doing that. So especially if someone's replaced you, and you need to be really mindful of the fact that you need to give them space to do things, and they might do it differently to how you would do it, but that's okay because that is their role and that is their job, and you need to give them the space and the time to do it. You don't want to be micromanaging and suffocating them just because that's where you feel most comfortable. So where you've previously always been known as the specialist, you need to kind of just throw that off and start going, no, my role here is to be a generalist. And I am here to bring that direction, that bigger picture thinking, and to bring that kind of pulling together of all the different areas. When you see that that is the value that you bring, then you will start to do more of that stuff. As long as you remain tied to your value being in your expertise, you're going to really struggle with stepping out of that into the generalist management. The other thing you need to do is understand that actually by giving your experts the space to be experts in their area, you're going to get much more value out of them. So you can ask them, use them. They don't expect you to know everything about everything. It's impossible. So use them and find out that information and build trusting relationships. They'll also really value you trusting them and empowering them, but being there to support and guide when needed. So once you feel confident in what your role is and how you're bringing value, then you'll do a much better job at leading these experts and letting them be the experts and lead in their space. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, please do leave your comments and questions down in the comments section below. I hope you have a really fantastic week and keep on changing the world.